In the real world, there aren't any things, nor are there any events. That doesn't mean to say that the real world is a perfectly featureless blank. It means that it's a marvelous system of wiggles in which we describe things and events in the same way we would pick out particular groups of stars in the sky and call them constellations, as if they were separate groups of stars. Well, they're groups of stars in the mind's eye, in our system of concepts that we've made up. They're not out there as constellations already grouped in the sky. In the same way, the difference between myself and the rest of the universe is nothing more than a mind made idea. It's not a real difference. Meditation is the way in which we come to feel our basic inseparability from the whole universe. And what that requires is that we shut up. That is to say, we become interiorly silent and cease from interminable chatter. That is to say, we talk to ourselves. Well, most of us think compulsively all the time. I remember when I was a child, we had a common saying, talking to yourself is the first sign of insanity. Now, obviously, if I talk to myself all the time, I don't hear what anyone else has to say. So, exactly the same way, if I think all the time, that is to say, if I talk to myself all the time, I don't have anything to think about except my thoughts. And therefore, I'm living entirely in a relationship and a world of symbols. I'm never in relationship with reality. That's the first basic reason for meditation, but there's another sense. And this is going to be a little bit more difficult to understand, why we say that meditation doesn't have a reason or doesn't have a purpose. In this respect, it's unlike almost any other thing that we do, except perhaps making music, dancing. Because when we make music, we don't do it in order to reach a certain point, such as the end of the composition. If that were the purpose of music, to get to the end of the piece, then obviously the fastest players would be the best. And so likewise, when we're dancing, we're not aiming to arrive at a particular place on the floor, as we would be if we were taking a journey. When we dance, the journey itself is the point. When we play music, the playing itself is the point. And the exact same thing is true for meditation. Meditation is the discovery that the point of life is always arrived at in the immediate moment. And therefore, if you meditate for an ulterior motive, that is to say, to improve your mind or to improve your character or be more efficient in life, you've got your eye on the future and you are not meditating, because the future is a concept. It doesn't exist. As a proverb says, tomorrow never comes. There is no such thing as tomorrow. There never will be, because time is always now. And that's one of the things we discover when we stop talking to ourselves, when we stop thinking. We find there is only the present, only an eternal now. So it's funny then that the one who meditates for no reason at all, except we could say for the enjoyment of it, and here I would impose the essential principle that meditation is supposed to be fun. It's not something you do as a grim duty. The trouble with religion as we know it is that it's so mixed up with grim duties and obligation and guilt. We do it because it's good for you. It's a kind of self-punishment. Well, meditation has nothing to do with that at all. It's kind of a digging with the present. It's a grooving with the internal now. this stage floor where everything happens, brings us into a state of peace where we can understand that the point of life, the place where it's at, is simply here and now. The scenes change on the stage floor, but the stage floor stays steady. And the easiest way to get into a meditative state is to begin by listening. If you simply close your eyes and allow yourself to hear all the sounds in and around you, just listen to the general hum and buzz of the world as if you were listening to music. So you don't have to try to identify what you're hearing. You don't have to put names on them. Simply allow them to play with your eardrums and let them go. In other words, you could put it to let your ears hear whatever they want to hear. Don't judge the sounds. There are no, as it were, proper sounds or improper sounds. And it doesn't matter if somebody coughs or sneezes or drops something. It's all just sound. And if I am talking to you right now and you're doing this, I want you to listen to the sound of my voice as if it were just noise. Don't try to make any sense of what I'm saying, because your brain will take care of that automatically. Don't try to understand anything. Just listen to the sound. As you pursue that experiment, you'll very naturally find that you can't help naming sounds, identifying them, that you will go on thinking. That is to say, talking to yourself inside your head automatically. But it's important that you don't try to repress or reject or get rid of those thoughts by forcing them out of your mind, because it'll have precisely the same effect as if you were trying to smooth rough water with a flat arm. You're going to disturb it all the more. What to do is, as you notice sounds, as you hear sounds, simply listen to them as part of the general noise, just as you would be listening to the sound of music, to cars going by, or to birds chattering. So look at your own thoughts as just noises. And soon you will find that the so-called outside world and the so-called inside world come together. They are happening. Your thoughts are happening, just like the sounds going on outside, and everything is simply a happening. All you're doing is watching it, the observer. Now, in this process, another thing that is happening that is very important is that you're breathing. And as you start meditation, you allow your breath to run just as it wills. In other words, don't do it at first any specific breathing exercises influencing it, but just watch your breath breathing the way it wants to breathe. And notice a curious thing about this. You say in the ordinary way, I am breathing, because you feel that breathing is something you are doing voluntarily, just in the same way you might be walking or talking. But you will also notice that when you are not thinking about breathing, your breathing goes on just the same. So the curious thing about breath is that it can be looked at as both a voluntary action and an involuntary action. You feel on the one hand, I am doing it, and on the other hand, it is happening to me. And that is why breath is one of the most important parts of meditation, because it's going to show you as you become aware of your breath, that the hard, fast division that we make between what we do on the one hand and what happens to us on the other is arbitrary. So that as you watch your breathing and you become aware that both the voluntary and the involuntary aspects of your experience are all one happening. Now, that may at first seem a little scary because you think, well, am I just the puppet of a happening? The mere passive witness of something going on completely beyond my control? Or on the other hand, am I really doing everything that's going on? Well, if I were, I should be God. And that would be very embarrassing because I would be in charge of everything. And that would be a terribly responsible position. The truth of the matter, as you will see it, is that both things are true. You can see it, that everything is happening to you. And on the other hand, you're doing everything. For example, your eyes that are turning sun into light. It's the nerve endings in your skin that are turning electric vibrations in the air into heat and temperature. It's your eardrums that are turning vibrations into the air, into sound, into my voice. And in that way, you are creating the world. But when we're not talking about it, when we're not philosophizing about it, then it's just this happening. It's this, we won't give it a name. So then, let me connect this with the concepts of the most profound things in life, birth and death, which puzzles people enormously, of course. Because in order to understand what the self is, you have to remember that it doesn't need to remember anything. Just like you don't need to remember how you work your thyroid gland. So then, when you die, you're not going to have to put up with everlasting non-existence. That's not an experience. A lot of people are afraid that when they die, they're going to be locked up in a dark room forever and sort of undergo that. But one of the most interesting things in the world is this is a yoga, this is a way of visualization. Try and imagine what it would be like to go to sleep and never wake up. Think about that. Children think about that. It's one of the great wonders of what it would be like to go to sleep and never wake up. And when you think about that, something will happen to you. You will think, among other things, what would it be like to wake up having never gone to sleep? That was when you were born. You see, you can't have an experience of nothing. Nature abhors a vacuum. So after you're dead, the only thing that can happen is the same experience or the same sort of experience as when you were born. To wake up having never gone to sleep. In other words, we all know very well that after people die, other people are born. And they're all you, only you could ever experience it one at a time. Everybody is I. You all know you're you. And wheresoever beings exist throughout all galaxies, it doesn't make a difference. You are all of them. And when they come into being, that's you. You know that very well, only you don't have to remember the past in the same way you don't have to think about how you work your thyroid gland or whatever else it is in your organism. You don't have to know how to shine the sun. You just do it like you breathe. Doesn't it really astonish you that you are this fantastically complex human being and that you're doing all of this and yet you never had any education in how to do it? You never learned, but you're this miracle. Well, the point is, from this strictly physical, scientific standpoint, this organism is a continuous energy with everything else that's going on. And if I am my foot, I am the sun. Only we've just got this partial view. We've got a little straw We've got this idea that no, I'm just something in this skin, in this body, in this container, the ego. But that's a joke. The ego is nothing other than the focus of conscious attention. It's a perspective. It's a radar, like on a ship. And that radar on the ship is the troubleshooter. Is there anything in the way? Is there anything that's a threat, a danger? And conscious attention is designed function of the brain to scan the environment like a radar does and note any troublemaking changes. But if you identify yourself with your troublemaker, then naturally you define yourself as being in a perpetual state of anxiety. And the moment we stop to identify with the ego, the more we become aware that we are the whole organism, just with a localized perspective into this specific form and energy and patterns, we see how harmonious it all is. An organism is a miracle of harmony. All this thing functioning together. Even all these creatures and things that we think are bad that are fighting each other in the bloodstream and eating each other up. If they weren't doing that, you wouldn't be healthy. So what is discord at one level of your being and from one level of understanding, on another level, it's complete harmony. And as you begin to realize that, you begin to be aware too that the discords of your life, so the discords of people's lives, which are fight at one level, and on a higher level of the universe are healthy and harmonious, you suddenly realize that everything that you are and do at that level is as magnificent and free as any of the blemishes, as the patterns in waves or the way a cat moves, and that this world is really okay. It can't be anything else because otherwise it couldn't exist. But the realities underneath physical existence, there is no difference between the physical and the spiritual. These are absolutely out of date categories. It's all process, it's all pattern. It isn't stuff on the one hand and form on the other. It is just its pattern. Life is a pattern. It's a dance of energy. So I will never invoke spooky knowledge. That is to say that I've had a private revelation or that I've had sensory vibrations going on a plane, which you don't have. Everything is standing right out in the open. It's just a question of how are you going to look at it? So you discover when you realize this, that the most extraordinary thing to me that I never cease to be flabbergasted at whenever it happens to me. Thank you so much for watching. I absolutely love Alan Watts. It's obviously really challenging to embody, but I'm hoping by deepening the more of me expressing this, so like putting it out into the world, the more that I can embody it. Because part of me feels like I intellectually know it, but I'm not fully embodying it. Anyway, thank you so much. I'll see you in the next one.